Okay. Good evening. Am I at the right place on this mic here? Okay. Sound okay, Melanie?
Yep.
Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. I am Brenda McKenna. I am your senator for District 9, and with me is your representative, Kathleen Cates. We are here to give you a bit of a debrief of what happened in the 56th New Mexico legislative session. Some of you may have attended some of our other forums, so this might be a little bit of a repeat, but we're going to try to give you some new insights now that March 6th has come and gone, and we now know what the governor vetoed and what she didn't. But I just want to start by saying we passed the largest New Mexico budget in our history at $10.2 billion. And that also, keep in mind too, we did about a 30% reserve with that. That's all with the realization that where we are one of the highest producing gas and oil states in the nation, we know we're going to plateau. And so while we are really looking in earnest on how else we're going to create and help support new state monies when oil and gas really does start to take a downturn. We also know that we have to keep a certain amount of reserve. So where some of my peers think that 30% was too high, some believe that that's just right. So with that, I want to mention some legislation that I was really hoping would pass this session and did not, but I feel rather confident that it will in 2025. The first one is the Family Medical Leave Act. Now, fortunately, it did pass in the Senate. This is a bill that was carried by Senator Mimi Stewart, who's also our pro tem. She carried it on the Senate side, and then on the House side, Representative Chandler carried it. So it did pass on the Senate side, got to the House side, and unfortunately, there were discussions that included a potential amendment, did not pass, but unfortunately, we lost it by a couple of votes, right? Representative, yep. So the reason why I'm mentioning that first is because Representative Chandler and Senator Stewart, they did their homework in 2022 when it didn't pass, and getting ready for this session. 23 it didn't pass, and then getting ready for this session. So they did an opinion poll of small businesses in New Mexico. What was the support, the percentage of support of the creation of a state-administered paid family and medical leave insurance program in our state? 85%. 85%. How many job seekers are increasingly interested in applying to jobs that provide family-friendly benefits and are evaluating employers based on benefits offered? 55%. Because of paid family and medical leave, insurance programs bring certain workers back into the job market. Their business would benefit from that additional workforce. How many of those agreed with that statement? 60%. And remember, folks, too, that our state employees, quite a few of our federal employees, that includes me, I get this type of leave. This is the type of leave that, with the exception of having a baby or adopting a new member to your family, this is the kind of leave you don't want to have to take, because it means that you're going to have to be away from work for a prolonged period of time because of a serious accident, surgery, illness. So really, we don't want to have to take this leave. But many times, things happen in our lives where we have to deal with catastrophic events. And this is the type of leave that would help our fellow New Mexicans. So I am optimistic that I know it'll be brought back in 25, and I'm really hoping that it does pass. Let's see, another bill that I carried with Senator Linda Lopez was SB 186, and we found out, we wouldn't get a message from the governor, but it would be to lift the rent prohibitions in New Mexico. So about 35 years ago, an out-of-state lobbying firm by the name of ALEC, American Legislative Exchange Council, they were instrumental in getting that bill passed in law. So what Senator Lopez and I simply wanted to do was lift that restriction so that municipalities, cities in New Mexico could really study and decide whether or not they want to put rent stabilization, rent controls in their areas. Now, why do I feel so strongly about this? Well, because I hear from constituents both in my job as your state senator and then also as my job for Representative Melanie Stansberry. Folks cannot afford the increasing rents in the Albuquerque area. And then I've also heard from statewide, Santa Fe, for instance. So something has to be done. And I hear some of my peers say, well, the government needs to build low-income housing. That's not the solution for folks who are going through a lot of financial pain and homelessness throughout our state. So that's another bill that I hope we will have a bill for 2025. What I do feel gives me some solace is I've been in contact with the governor's housing czar, if you will, and he has promised me to work with me and Senator Lopez and our advocates this year to help devise a plan, hopefully a bill for 2025, and so we can really start to get our hands around this problem. Let me see. Some other bills that were really joint memorials that didn't really get to where I would have liked them to go is to modernize the legislature. Right now, we have on the books that we're limited to, a long period, the long session, which is 60 days, and all bills are germane, right? And then we have our short session, which is what we just completed, 30 days. And the governor decides if it's germane, if it'll get a message, but basically we're limited to budgetary bills and legislation and the like. Well, unfortunately, none of those bills that would have addressed that passed. None of the bills that would have proposed giving your legislators a salary and full-time staff passed. So these are things that I hope will come again in 2025. I really feel very strongly that the way our legislative system is set up now in New Mexico, our state is not being well served. We're missing out on a lot of talent that would like to serve as a senator, like to serve as a representative, but once they learn, you only get per diem during the session and when you go to interim meetings. Otherwise, you're considered a volunteer. They simply cannot afford it. Or their employers will not let them take off 30 days, 60 days, or attend the interim meetings that will be coming up for Representative Cates and I. So again, I hope that they get more of see the light in 2025. I'm going to pause there. I want to give the mic to Representative Cates. I've made some other notes, and I'm thinking with the questions that you propose, we can get to them, okay? Representative Cates.
Thank you, Senator. For those of you who don't know, I'm Representative Kathleen Cates. So 30-day session, I always say it's the best of times, it's the worst of times. It's a very fast piece. I did have several bills that did make it onto the governor's call list, but did not make it through the session. And so I want to tell you some bills that I worked on, maybe have co-sponsored or have sponsored in the past that I believe that directly relate to Corrales, and show you also where some of our investments are. So I sit on the water committee, the agricultural water and acequia committee. The agricultural community is near and dear to my life here in Corrales, and also part of my district is east of the river as well, in the unincorporated area of Alameda, also an agricultural center. So we did several water bills: House Bill 148, House Bill 211, that were instrumental in investing into water. I mean, we all know that the most precious thing in New Mexico is water. I understand that education is important and safety is important and health is important, but none of it means anything without water. We have to go water first. So when we travel around the state during interim committees, and to supporting my senator colleague here in her communication to you about professionalizing, today is not a paid per diem legislative day. It's only during official meetings. And so all the constituent meetings and everything else like that, those are volunteer. So we heard, when I would travel around the state, I heard a lot of different information. We have a lot of different quasi-governmental organizations around the state. Water is political. We have acequia associations. We have domestic water entities. We have the Mid-Regional Water Conservatory, because the river goes right through us here. We have shared wells, we have aquifers, we have community water sites. I think my friend here said, how many are in Placitas right now in the shared? 30? Three. And so we have a lot of different ways, and they all have a quasi-governmental stake in the water. And what I heard consistently is that we are mostly volunteer, and we have a few other things on our plate, which as a legislator, we understand that. And that we are subject experts about delivering water to our community, making sure that some of them have as little as 30 hookups, but 150 to 30 hookups is a very small water community. They may be subject expert in delivering that water, but they are not subject expert in writing federal grants or being able to navigate the bureaucracy of our very supportive government. And we do not want to leave federal dollars on the table. So right now, there are a lot of federal dollars on the table with Biden's Inflation Reduction Act. And we want to make sure that we are accessing those at full capacity. So these bills are providing technical support so that those entities can request technical support in federal grant writing, in making sure that they hit the criteria. These also are funding our water projects. We funded more water projects around the state than ever before. We funded 55 of them this year, 55 of them who made criteria. So how many are not making criteria? And criteria may be having their financial audits done. Maybe they don't know how to access an accountant. They may not be able to get the money together for that. So this is technical assistance that make sure that those entities out there are hitting criteria so that we can, in the other bills, be able to fund them. They also, the federal government is accessing enormous amounts of money towards water, but we have to have matching funds. So if we have a $2 million water project and you have 50 hookups, you're probably not sitting on a bag of cash of $250,000, which the feds may request that you show. So These bills also create funding mechanisms so that the state can help you with matching funds. So this is essential for our water. Now, why does this really directly impact Corrales? It does not, but I do believe it's showing our agricultural community, who heavily relies on the Mid-Regional Water Conservatory, and we do not have an ASAKI association. They do not have a quasi-governmental. I am strongly encouraging them and trying to support them into organizing so that they can create themselves either an ASAKI association or umbrella under one, or become a 501c3, so they too can access these funds. We still obviously will always rely on the MRGC, but having something together so that we can start building some infrastructure in bad times so that we're ready for it, I think is essential in long-term planning for Corrales and to keeping our agricultural community strong. I want to tell you about a bill that passed. It was in the tax package. I did not sponsor it this year, but I sponsored it last year. I want to make sure that my fellow colleagues understand the importance of it. It is we made tax exempt for dyed diesel fuel. Like, Kathleen, why do you care about diesel fuel? So our federal government during World War II and after World War II decided to create diesel fuel with dye that doesn't hurt your engine at all, to distinguish it between the fuel that farmers use for their equipment to the fuel that we may use in the industrial world. And that dyed diesel fuel would not be taxed. We were not going to put another expense on our farming community in this country. So this was a very important federal plan, and that's what was implemented. But during our financial crisis, during the Executive Martinez administration, they put a state tax on dyed diesel fuel. I feel with our high grocery store prices and our agricultural community, I wanted to do everything we can to support that. And last year, a lot of our GRT waivers might have been line item vetoed, but this one and also another one that I did sponsor was signed by the governor. I'm so very grateful for our agricultural community for this one. The one that I sponsored is a GRT waiver for home modifications for individuals with disabilities and the elderly who want to stay at home. We want them to be safe while they're at home. They can access a very too small of a money from Medicaid or from home community base through their MCO to buy grab bars, wheelchair ramps, zero entry showers, widening doorways, so they can stay in their home. It's much cheaper than them going to an assisted living program. Currently, they only have access to $5,000 every 5 years. So you can get into the house or you can get into the bathroom, but you can't do both with that budget. And then you had to take another $350 out of that budget for GRT. So we were successful in getting that GRT waived this year, and that was a bill that I've carried the last 2 years, and it got passed and was signed by the governor as well. I'll take another break and go back to my senator because we have lots to talk about. Thanks.
Oh, thank you, Representative. Let's see. So I brought with me the 2024 summary session, and then also the 2024 budget highlights. Melanie, is it on that podium back there?
Okay. It is, and I think
so if you'd like a
has
copy, please help yourself. They're on the podium there. Okay, so bills that I'm really pleased passed. Let me tell you about a couple of them. And I know the governor signed them. Really pleased. The first one I'd like to mention is SB 5, which is firearms near polling places. And I was really pleased. Senator Worth, who's also our majority leader, welcomed me to co-sponsor this one with him. You know, the basis for that bill is in 2020, I believe, he had some constituents come up to him in Santa Fe. That's his area where he represents. And they either worked or were volunteering at polling places in the area. And they told him, Senator Worth, it really, we enjoy doing working at the polls. However, it is very upsetting to us when we see voters come in with firearms. So he proposed the bill in 2023. It didn't pass, but this year it did. And so it passed as is, no firearms whatsoever in the Senate. I'm not pleased that the amendment in the House passed, and so concealed carry is allowed. I still don't see why you need concealed carry in a polling station. If you remember, just this past January, someone brought concealed carry firearm at the Duran's pharmacy. Somehow it went off. It was by mistake, and it struck someone in the head. I can see something like that happening at a polling station, right? If it happened at a restaurant and store, what's to say it wouldn't happen at a polling station? So to me, it's one of those special places. We don't need firearms there, but at least we're a bit safer with SB 5 in statute. Another public safety-ish bill that the governor signed, and this was on her call, is the 7-day waiting period for firearm purchases. When Senator Cervantes originally introduced this bill, it was a 14-day waiting period. There was an amendment, and so now it's a 7-day waiting period. So it's regarded as a cool down period before a gun purchase goes through to the purchaser. So again, it's not the ideal bill, but at least we're a bit safer from the proliferation and easy access of firearms in our society. Another bill I'm really pleased and very timely that it passed, and it was a very big priority for our Secretary of State, Maggie Toulouse Oliver, and that's SB 108, distribution of election fund. This is going to help her and her staff and really the county clerks in all of our 33 counties to help pay for the elections coming up this year. Both in June, we've got our primary, and November, we've got our general. She really needed more funds to continue their excellent work for the election processes, equipment, supplies, et cetera, in the state of New Mexico. So I'm really pleased that passed. Speaking of ways to think about different energy in New Mexico, I'm really pleased that HB 91 passed. This was previously vetoed last year. This is funds for geothermal projects. We got a lot of geothermal energy in the southern part of our state, and it's really past time that we tap into that, really start to develop how we can use it, where we can use it to help us get off oil and gas. Let's see, is there something else? Oh, I wanted to share this statistic with you. This is regarding the firearms nearing polling places. So this is nationwide. What is the percentage of local election officials that fear for their safety and that of their colleagues? Anybody know what the percentage is? This is nationwide. 45%. Fear for their own safety or that of their colleagues at polling places and election sites. So I'm really pleased SB 5 is in law now. Let me see, what is there? I think there was something else I wanted to share with you. Oh, Representative Cates and I, and many of our colleagues heard about how many roads need repair in New Mexico. What you'll see on the budget sheet, the highlights I made available, a total of $500 million is going to be invested in roads in New Mexico. And there's a specific list here, certain earmarks for certain projects. So please look at that. And is there something else I wanted to share? I think I'm going to pause there and let Representative Cates go. And then Melanie, when did when would you like to take questions from?
Whenever it works for you.
Okay, all right. Well, we're almost ready for questions, don't you think?
Thank you, Senator. So there were, and I'll be glad to talk with you and answer questions. I don't want to go through all, I mean, I always carry way too many bills, so I don't want to like list every bill I carried for you. I want to let you know the work that still needs to be done. So I carried 4 what I consider to be ethics bills, and for one reason or another, they did not progress. And if I'm sent back to the roundhouse for next session, I will definitely carry all of them. One is, let me make sure I can see it right. One is HB 8, which is the Elected Officials and Government Conduct Bill. This is the second year that I have passed it and have got it passed unanimously through the floor, 2 committees and the House floor, and I have yet to get it heard or voted on the Senate side. This is, we are very short on our documentation and holding our elected officials accountable and transparent in our conduct. It's been very, we've only had, I think, an ethics commission since 2017. And so this bill raises penalties to ethics violations that have not been raised since 1993. My joke is there's several representatives who were born after that period of time, so that was a while ago. It brings some of the Federal Hatch Act into our state statutes. It also defines things of value that you cannot offer or ask for a vote for monetary gain, for a financial contract, or for sexual favors. And so these are just a very clear, simple government conduct act that I know it needs to be passed. And so I'm going to be working hard to try to get it through the Senate next session. My other bill was housing discrimination. So things I heard in my interim committee period was individuals who said, I have a housing voucher and I go and I qualify to rent this apartment because I have a voucher. A landlord will say, we don't rent to vouchers. I heard active military say, I qualify to rent this apartment, but landlords will say, I'm not going to rent to active military because I don't know if you're going to be deployed in 9 months or 2 years. I'm on fixed income with Medicare or Social Security. I'm not being allowed to rent even though I meet criteria because they're afraid I will not meet criteria the 3rd rent hike. So these are discriminatory practices. In our country in 1967, we passed federally the Fair Housing Act because at that time there were landlords who would not rent to people because of their race, their religion, their sexual orientation, and this federal law protected by making these protected classes individuals. And landlords at that time had a lot of excuses. Oh, we want you to be more comfortable and live, with people who look more like you. Whatever their excuse was, it was not valid. And so we have the Fair Housing Act federally, 1967. In 1968, our state passed the Human Rights Act. Most states have their own state law to expand that protected class. And as a person, I know that in the 80s, it was very common for landlords not to rent to people with AIDS or HIV, or that they even thought were going to have AIDS or HIV. And they had many excuses. Oh, it's a health concern. And then then in the 90s, they didn't rent to single parents. Oh, they don't watch their children and they'll destroy our apartments. So these are now protected classes. I am carrying a bill adding a protected class to the Human Rights Act of income source so that a landlord can still protect their property by having a criteria of who they decide to rent with. So their criteria can include a credit score, but they can't have a credit score they can't say a 650 credit score for everybody else, but if you're on voucher, I need a 700 credit score. That is a discriminatory practice, and it is being done. It will protect all those categories I talked about, that landlords cannot say, I will not rent to you based on your income. They will have to, then another criteria that many landlords have is they want to see 3 times your income to prove that you can pay your rent. I understand that. If you have a W-2 job and your apartment is $1,000 a month, you have to prove that you make $3,000 a month. You have a W-2 job, you could spend that money on diamond doorknobs if you want to. But if you have a housing voucher, whether it's a tribal housing voucher or Section 8 due to a disability or an income source housing voucher, that voucher can only be used for housing, no diamond doorknobs. So this bill will ensure that if you want to rent an $1,100 apartment and you only have a $950 housing voucher, then you need to show a let me make sure I'm going to do my math, $450 income a month. So that's 3 times above the voucher. And you do need to do that. I want landlords to be able to protect their properties. They have every right. They worked very hard for them as well. They're immigrants and they're hardworking and they've saved their money. They have mortgage payments too they have to make. But I am disgusted by these discriminatory practices and hope to be able to successfully carry a version of House Bill 8, which is adding income source to our protected classes. Another one of my ethics bills is House Bill 123, and I didn't ask for that number, but it sounds awesome, isn't it? House Bill 123, it is an anti-book banning bill, which is hard to say 3 times really fast. So librarians said, let's call it a protection bill because it protects librarians. It says, let's continue to do what we're already doing in our public libraries, which is having documented processes and procedures on the review of what books come on our shelves or taken off. And those documented processes and procedures are based on the National Library Bill of Rights. We're already doing that. What this bill says is we should continue to do that. And if you do not, as a public library, follow your own processes and procedures, but instead give in to book banning hate groups based on the race or the religion or the sexual orientation of the author or the subject matter, you will lose your state funding. We want to have it very clear. Librarians are well educated and well researched in serving their community. They know how to survey their community needs, and we need, and they're very non-political in so many ways. And we want to make sure that they're protected so that they can say, listen, I have to follow my process and procedure. Otherwise, we will lose our funding. This is an important thing that we are all going to move forward with. So it is a very dear thing to my heart. We have to protect our librarians. I am so sorry to say that I've witnessed some of these groups actually threaten librarians, call them horrible names. And so this is a little more emotional bill than my typical bills for me. And then my last ethics bill was brought to me by the League of Women Voters, which is a nonpartisan group. They would like to have, and I agree with them, to have a task force that is overseen by our Secretary of State that will provide information to our Secretary of State on how to create individual groups for all 33 counties. So there'll be 33 groups. How are we going to put them together? That will do county districting. So currently, our county commissioners are creating their own districts in which they're getting elected in. And I, who have spent 18 years running nonprofits and understanding quality controls and transparency and ethics, that this is not an ethical process. So I don't know what the process is because we really want county voice. I suspect there'll be COG members and other members on these groups, but we want to create a task force to advise us on how groups will be put together per county that can advise us. And this is a bill that the senator has co-sponsored, and also she has carried versions of it in the past as well. We're going to keep moving forward. Failure one year could mean a success the next. And so I just want to briefly, before I hand back to the senator, just let you know that there were also, one of the things we do as legislators is we have, I'm a House member, so I have the smallest budget. The senator here, she has deeper pockets than I do. And so, but we have capital outlay funds and we're able to contribute to projects. And I just want to let you know that in the village of Corrales, that I invested in the Meadowlark Lane project, into the fire training center project, mid-regional water conservatory project, the SCAFCA project, the historical church, which is, I think history is only second to water in the village of Corrales. And so let's see, and gym equipment for our new gym in Corrales. And so I just want to let you know that those were some of the Corrales investments I was able to make. And back to you, Senator.
Oh, thank you, Representative. Yeah, that's a good, we're going to start taking questions. I just want to mention too what I appropriated for Corrales in the area. By the way, we met with the mayors of, let's see, Corrales, Bernalillo, the city manager of Rio Rancho, the county manager of Sandoval. Was not able to meet with the governor of the Pueblo of Sandia, however, did meet with their lobbyist, Larry Horan. And so well before the session started, we had a very good idea of the priorities that the communities needed in the way of capital outlay, and then later on, NM Grow. NM Grow used to be known as junior money. But now it's new this year. It's government recurring opportunity funds. And the difference on that one is we were, for instance, senators were limited to 4 projects for 2 years, 200,000 apiece. And we weren't able to divvy it up. We weren't able to really collaborate really too much. And then they're also going to be asking us to meet with the stakeholders, agencies, to determine metrics to measure the initiatives and the effectiveness of these projects. So that's something new too. But anyway, getting back to capital outlay, let's see. I did appropriate some to the Coronado Historic Site on 550. Let's see, to the Bernalillo Fire Station construction. Let me see, to the Corrales Fire Line and Water Tower construction, Corrales Fire Substation construction, the historic old church wall repair. Let's see, what else? Oh, and then the Meadowlark Road. Both Representative Cates and I took care of that entire request from the village. Let's see, I also appropriated to the Sandoval new district courthouse, animal shelter, Sandoval County, as well as the village of Corrales, town of Bernalillo. They all need a new emergency dispatch center. And so that's the request is high. It's almost $12 million. But I contributed to it, and I'm hoping that the governor did as well. Let's see. Yeah, Meadowlark, we took care of Meadowlark. And then I also contributed some to Placitas and Albuquerque, the city of Albuquerque, because I've got some land, part of my district is in Albuquerque. And so I've helped with some pallet structures, which is some temporary housing for the homeless, which I think is really important because seeing any of our fellow Americans, it's really important to me that everybody has a home. So so that's some of my capital outlay, and I'm thinking, Melanie, we can start taking questions. I think folks are going to be asked to come to the podium.
Yes. So if anybody has a question for either the representative or the senator, if you'd like to come up to the podium with the microphone, or if there's anybody at home on Zoom, if you'd like to turn on your camera, we can take questions from you too.
Yep.
And if you could just state your name so they know who you are.
My name is Kathleen Harvey, Harvey. It just came up tonight. We went to dinner at a restaurant, not in Corrales, but on Alameda. And a guy was in there with some friends, and they don't serve liquor there. But he had his a pistol or a gun on his holster, in his holster on his side. And I said, I won't tell you what I said because it was rude. But then we were talking, and I said, well, they don't have a liquor license yet. They're waiting on it. Do we have a law in the books that you cannot bring a weapon into an establishment that serves liquor? The young man in Albuquerque, that he was 16, that shot somebody, we found out it was in the bar, but he got charged with something like that. But is that a state law, or can we have a state law that if you have a liquor license? That's just a question and something to ponder.
Thank you for the pondering. And I would love to hear that language after the meeting, Ms. Harvey. Yeah. And so, I am not familiar with all the laws, but I do believe concealed carry allows you to carry wherever. There is no special places with concealed carry. Yeah, he was not concealing it. Now, and here's the thing, and this is true for the new law in the polling places or at any time. If somebody has a concealed carry, and this was Representative Ream's argument who amended that bill, is that they're fingerprinted, their background, they're trained, then they have to be retrained to get they have to re-register on a regular basis in the training, and that these are not the individuals that are standing with large, not concealed weapons threatening by saying they're protecting polling places. That being said, is part of your concealed training is it's concealed. So if it's behind your jacket and you bend down and somebody can see it, it is not concealed. You have already violated what your license allows you to do. And so that is a violation that's reportable.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for your service, even though most of it is volunteer. My name's Rudy Miera. I live on East Meadowlark. Lived here in the village for over 30 years. And anyway, one of the things I wanted to say, well, first of all, I have a brother who was born with cerebral palsy, and he receives services from ARCA. I sit on the ARCA board, and I want to thank you. For your diligence and your support of people with disabilities and your consciousness for that. But what I'd like to talk about is, you were mentioning about the ethics bill, especially as it impacts the one regarding the protection for librarians. Rodolfo Anaya, before he passed, was pretty much a lifelong friend. He was older than me, so his books, a couple of them always ended up on the banned books list, as you well know, right? But I always taught it when I worked both in alternative education settings and standard public schools. It would be concerning to me, and Mayor Fahey, maybe you can help us out here, but I guess a proposal has come up to combine representation from Corrales, Rio Rancho, Bernalillo, I forget the other one, right? And apparently we're only being allocated one representative on 12-member representative board. Is that correct? More or less, right? Okay, well, and we'll have to deal with that board itself and stuff, but I understand what you're talking about the protection for librarians. Librarians should never feel threatened any more than somebody in a restaurant just trying to eat a meal, right? We need to protect our citizens and we need to protect our liberties, you know, and thank you for your diligence in that. Also, Senator McKenna, back when I was a teacher, I knew Mimi Stewart because back in the day, she was a teacher too. The proposals for extending the time that the legislature is in session, I think it's pretty important. It's pretty critical. I don't think a lot of people in the whole United States realize that there are some states that have year-round legislatures. I don't know if that's the way to go. I don't think we could afford it. I don't think we need it here in New Mexico, but we certainly need an expansion of the time that we have. How does it look for next year? Or what? Yeah, because next year will be a 60-day session.
Mr. Miera, right?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, I'm really hoping that 2025 is the year. You know, had it passed this year, it would have been on your ballots in November because, you know, these are all, you know, the changes that we've been thinking about, it's the constitutional amendments. And so the voters, all of you need to vote on them.
Right.
But the groundswell is moving, and I feel that it's increasing versus decreasing. The support for it, right? I agree with you. I think it is. Yeah, because some of our peers don't think that way, but I really do think some of those peers have decided not to run again. That's one thing. We're going to be getting some younger legislators. They've got a different perspective. So I really do think eventually it's going to happen. So our neighbor to the north, Colorado, I was speaking to a state senator from there about a month ago. He also he's also a state senator in Colorado. Mm-hmm. So their sessions, for instance, are January through May.
Yeah.
They have staff year round, and they're paid a part-time salary of $42,000 a year.
Okay.
So simply comparing us to our friends up north, you can see why New Mexico is 1-2 years, maybe even longer, behind in deliberating and passing legislation. And some could say too that the bills that we do pass probably could be done better, simply because
more time.
more of us would be able to go to interim committee meetings. I only got to go to 4 interim committee meetings last year because of the needs of my job. Right. So yeah, there's many reasons that I'm mentioning to you now and that I mentioned previously. I really am hoping that it's going to be happening in 2025.
And I hope so too, because, well, I'll just come out and say it. I can say it. You know, there's less possibility of corruption if you're paying people to do a job, to be a professional, right? And you know, maybe we can just put a buffer towards a lot of the things that happen with lobbying, right? I mean, you know.
Right. You get younger people, definitely. Thank you.
So my last statement is we need to pay you a good day's wage for a good day's labor, okay?
Thank you. No, I believe that I think that we are a more productive legislature than a lot of those year-round legislators, honestly. So I understand, you know, having a time limit to it. But the time limit is, there was a lot of great legislature that did not get heard in a 30-day session. We don't have the time. And we had a 3:30 in the morning session, and it's not that we weren't working. And so Also, when you're younger and you have children you have to support and jobs that may not be as flexible, you can't also, I mean, I had been asked to run when I had kids in the house. And I said, no, I couldn't do it. I had to wait till my baby was 21 before I ran. Now, I do know some legislators that have done it, and we've got some young legislators, and now they allow teachers, they'll pay teachers, even if they serve. So there's little incremental steps. But I do think it's a matter of you going out and educating your neighbors, talk to the people in line at the post office and the grocery store, let them know, do you know we don't have a paid legislature? Do you know that they only get paid during interim meetings or sessions? They don't get paid when they work with constituents or do town halls or any of these other things. Do you know what their mileage is? I commute, my mom lives with me and I commute a lot of the session. I stay up there only for like the last couple of weeks. And, but I get reimbursed for one round trip for the 60-day session, because that's considered one meeting. So, so those are little nuances, operational, that we don't really talk, because our job is about policy, but we need to educate our voters what the logistics of the operations are so that they understand, because we need their service, we need their talent, and we're not going to be able to do it unless we are able to provide some kind of benefits. And so,
Once again, thank you for your time. Thank you for your service.
thank you.
Good evening. I'm Marg Elliston, and I too wanted to thank you for your service. I mean, you guys are both really approachable. You remember and you deliver. So thank you for all your hard work, and thank you, especially Senator McKenna. I haven't gotten to talk to you in person when you've represented me for confirmations, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm sorry to see you go, but I thank you for 4 good years and knowing, and I bet you learned as much as we did about all this legislation. So I'm eager to talk to you about what's next for you, but I'm really grateful for both of you, and I look forward to working with both of you again. So thanks, many, many, many thanks.
Thank you, Marg, and it was my pleasure to sponsor you this year. And I found serving as your state senator absolutely fascinating. And I'm really so proud of our New Mexico State employees. I just learned so much about what they do. And many of them are silent heroes, because you learn so much about what they do when you attend committee meetings. Yes, our committee meetings are long, but what a fascinating, a wonderful education you get when you attend them. And as many as Representative Cates and I do, we learned so much about our state, and I'm really proud of our state and our state employees. So thank you.
No.
Not the most comfortable chairs. I'm Paula Powell, and I'm going to ask, all right, I'm going to confess my ignorance right here. I spent a lot of years raising kids on my own, and then I was caregiver to my mother on my own. So I fell seriously out of touch with what was going on in the world. So I've been trying to come to various and sundry meetings, and I have come to the conclusion that I am seriously uneducated here, and I need to try to, and I'm too young to start from square one. So I need you guys to give me sort of some ideas. Yes, coming to this, I thought, oh, I'm going to hear kind of the same thing I heard Saturday at Matucci's. No, you threw a few extras at me. Thanks for more to think about. Actually, I'm being sarcastic, but I am actually grateful. How does an old woman who feels very out of touch and very foundering, there's a lot I don't know about my own state. There's a lot I don't know about how the Roundhouse runs. I just don't know. And I feel like, as a retired teacher, I feel like I need to know, because I can't say to these kids, get out and vote, get involved, do, when I'm going, I don't know. So what I'm saying is, are there other ways? Obviously, this was a good idea. I'm glad I came. And I'm glad I've had a chance to meet with both of you. And also, thank you. I think everyone's had the same thing. Thank you. And thank you for doing this. I'm never going to learn if nobody doesn't talk to me, right? So my question is, I need some more steps that I can make going forward. And so I'm asking, what are the steps that I can do going forward so that I can become a better voter, a better citizen, and a better educated old lady? 3 important things. Do them all right now.
Well, thank you so much. Just, for transparency, I didn't give you $5 or that script or anything, because that was beautiful, right? Because that was a wonderful thing. And just know that, that's why I love this job, is because I learn every day. I learned all the things I don't know. And I'm learning every day, and I still find things every day I don't know. So I don't think you should feel bad about it. You're showing up. That's great. I come to the village council meeting. I learn more. I read the mayor's newsletter. I learn more. I take a hike. I talk to the fire chief. These are things that I do to expand. I love my interim committee meetings. If you ever want to sit with me, I learned so much about the state that I didn't know about, which is fascinating. And we need your voice. And one of the, and I have friends all over the world, but definitely all over the country. And some of them participate in government in other states. And one of the things I'm so very proud about in New Mexico, and this was way before I became an elected official, when I was an executive for disability advocacy and things like that, is the elected officials in New Mexico are approachable. We do grocery shopping at the same grocery store you do. You're going to see me in my yoga hoodie on Monday mornings. And you can come up to me and you can talk to me in the grocery store, and you can call me up. We don't have a staff. So when you call me, I get this a lot. People go, no, I want to talk to Representative Kathleen Case. That's me. And they're like, no, I need the representative self. No, that's me. I answer my own phone. And so it's a wonderful, it's just another fabulous thing about our state, that the people are represented by the people. Can we do it better by diversifying our legislature, by paying it so that we can attract? Yes, we can do it better, but we do it pretty darn good compared to the rest of the country. So yeah, please find your passion. I know that, are you a member of Rio Rancho or Corrales?
I'm from Rio Rancho.
That's okay. It's all right. Your secret's safe with me. And so there's tons of opportunities. You're into law enforcement. We have a police academy in Rio Rancho, a civilian police academy. We do CERT training, which is for community evacuation through the fire chief. Our fire chief here in Corrales is exceptional. He'll talk to you about water, conservation, bosque health, the river safety, the siphon, whatever. So find your passion and reach out and say, how do I get information about that? You lived in a world that you cared for the people that you love. That's our world. So that's great that you did that. That's what you need to do. And it's wonderful that you can participate in a wider community. I'm a big believer throughout my entire career. It's kind of my spiritual program is, where is your weekly volunteer activity? I used to have an organization I had of like 150 employees, and everybody, including the individuals, the adults with disabilities we served, had to do a volunteer activity in the community every week. It's part of learning about your community, knowing what it feels like that somebody is relying on you. You probably know that well too, already, but your community relies on you too. And so I'm a big advocate for that as well, and learning more about your community. But we will all remain ignorant. There's so much to know. I can't have I said, I can get a PhD in water and still not know what I need to know about water. So I get it.
Thank you. I have some ideas for you.
Ooh, goody.
So the first one is kind of how I started out. I started out as a citizen lobbyist for organizations whose mission I think highly of. And so one was for Animal Protection New Mexico. Every year they produce Lobby Day. And so what happens is in the morning, you are trained how to be a citizen lobbyist. At the Roundhouse, you have lunch, and then in the afternoon, you go and lobby. So many organizations, you said you're an educator, right? So you could expand, if you're still very interested keenly in the education sphere, you can check to see what organizations have something like APNM, the Animal Protection New Mexico. Another organization that does that a lot is Sierra Club. So, and League of Women Voters, they do something very similar to Lobby Day. So I've done that. And then, and I was a citizen lobbyist for a couple of bills that I care a great deal about before I decided to run for office. Now that I've been in office and hearing what you're interested in, what I suggest you do is when the interim meetings start getting scheduled, take a look at the committees, see what committees you're interested in. There's quite a few of them. If you are willing to drive to them, some of them are held quite locally here. You can do that, or you can participate virtually. Do that, really get to know about what those committees do, what they're thinking about, get to know the legislators. And then when the session begins, contact my successor and ask to be her guest. So there are 4 candidates that are running to be my successor. They're all female, so that's why I'm saying contact her. That's been, I think, very valuable to folks who want to learn about what happens on the floor, what happens in committee, what is a day like in the life of a representative or a senator. Yeah, because living that is so different from reading a bill and looking at something on webcam.
Cool.
Homework.
Oh, goody. I always liked homework.
Anybody have any? So I'll be glad if anybody doesn't have. I'm here. If anybody has any more questions. If not, I'll stick around if there's a particular subject matter, or if you don't want to discuss it tonight, you can also reach out to me as well. Be glad. I take a lot of coffee meetings just to learn more about my district so that I can know how to represent it as best I can. So thank you.
I found the law about firearm and liquor establishments. I can show it to you if you'd like to come up. Yeah. Okay, so a person who is carrying a concealed handgun and who is in possession of a valid concealed handgun license for that gun is no longer permitted from carrying that handgun into a liquor license establishment that dispenses alcoholic beverages for off-premises consumption, such as a packaged liquor store, grocery stores, convenience stores, or in a restaurant licensed to sell only beer and wine. And this is dated August 16th, 2011. Open carry. Okay, this is talking about off-premise licenses or restaurants only licensed to sell beer and wine who wish to prohibit firearms on their private property may do so pursuant to the Concealed Handgun Carry Act and may post a sign stating no firearms allowed. Okay, so the establishment, and I've seen these labels on some establishments, no firearms allowed. Yep. So, thank you, Melanie.
Thank you, Melanie. Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time to come out to Corrales and talk to our citizens.
Thank you.